The Wall Street Journal published an article about how American women, now more than ever, resolutely don't desire marriage, and that has detrimental effects on society. We need to talk about this. I'm Marcus Peter. The Wall Street Journal published an article essentially saying that American women are now more resolute than ever to not get married. Daniel Cox, who's the director of the Survey Center at the American Enterprise Institute, looked at this article and put out a few statements. The American Enterprise Institute also has studies that have addressed this issue, but this is one of his statements. The numbers aren't netting out, and this is what he means by that. This movement is going to spell detrimental effects for the nation if we don't take a look at what's causing this and honestly, as a society, try to remediate this. But here's some of the key data points. Number one, more women are attending college, more women are buying houses and focusing on their friendships and career than focusing on dating or marriage, and more than men. Yes, that's true. More women are attending colleges, more women are buying houses and focusing on their careers than men are. And we've seen this drastic shift, even in the career sphere, between women and men in that regard. And so in all of those areas, the only places where men seem to be doing better than women in society is incarceration. There are a few other metrics, but this is one of the major ones. All of this is conveying of a certain sickness in society, that this imbalance is resulting in the decay of the foundational building block of society, which is family. Over a third of surveyed single men in the U.S. said that they are happier in their life now than married counterparts. This was in a survey of about 5,837 people. So let's talk about this from a global perspective. In 1970, about 69% of women were married or in some kind of a legal union. By 2020, this has now fallen to 64%. But marriage rates in Europe, North America have seen sharp declines. There's been an age shift in marriage. People are getting older and older before they choose to marry. This is global. But in the United States specifically, in 2021, the marriage rate was 14.9 per 1,000 women. Now, it's down now from 16.3 in 2011. Now, why is all of this crucial? Because when we take a look at the decline, what we are seeing is the health of a society as a kind of barometer. This is us putting our finger on the pulse of society. Economic independence means that women don't have to depend on men for their economic stability, which is a great thing. It's progress in society that's brought about this. Here's the issue, though. Economic stability and economic independence doesn't mean that one has to shirk those responsibilities that are necessary for the common good. We'll talk about that in a bit. Cultural shifts, this might be the biggest problem. This sort of implicit recognition that marriage is a kind of shackle, that's a problem. It's a lie, but it's also a kind of problem. Higher education, particularly among women, is strongly linked to marriage delays, because the more women go to higher education, the more they want to focus on their careers, and so they put off marriage, because again, that speaks to the cultural narrative that they're being fed and the cultural narrative that's permeating the culture. Also, technology and isolation, which has resulted in the seeking of companionship on the digital sphere that has created a repudiation of and the desire for companionship and lifelong meaning in marriage and the family. Scott Galloway, in his book Adrift, he wrote, America in 100 Charts. This is the title of the book, Adrift, America in 100 Charts. He wrote, research shows that declining marriage rates actually lead to lower economic output, reduced happiness, and a lower birth rate. A large and growing cohort of bored, lonely, poorly educated men is a malevolent force in any society. We're still too young in this boom to see it, but we're already seeing the trends in that direction. Fertility rates in America are at a point where, at least within the next 25 years, we won't even be at replacement rate for our economic output in terms of workforce in the labor sphere. So with this lack of labor, what's going to happen? The economy is going to shrink. And we're going to suffer from it. And so our capacity of wealth creation in society is going to suffer. But more importantly, that's just economic. The propagation of the common good in society is also going to suffer because fewer people are invested in the working of the common good. So the American Enterprise Institute that I mentioned earlier, they put out a study, and one of the statements in that study is 60% of conservatives believe that the decline of marriage represents a negative development for American society. The problem is, this view is only shared by 17% of liberals. And so this core fundamental truth, this is not a conservative liberal thing, it's a core fundamental truth, is not shared across the American sphere because we've been fooled into thinking that immediate material gain must be the name of the human game. That is false. We have to be thinking about the common good and the longevity of a nation and society for the sake of the flourishing of every single person within that nation. In fact, studies prove children in intact marriage families consistently show better outcomes: education, mental health, socioeconomic stability, choices that they face. Incarceration rates always go lower when they come from stable home environments. The Brookings Institution put out a study that said children raised by married parents are more likely to graduate from high school, avoid poverty, and have better emotional health. But what's the Catholic response here? The Catholic response is this. The USCCB immediately commented on this issue by saying, the family is the foundation of society. It builds up the common good and makes the common good possible. Pope Leo XIII in Arcanum Divine said, marriage has God for its author and was from the very beginning a kind of foreshadowing of the incarnation of his son. There's a theological reality we're missing if we choose a life that's completely at the service of the self. And so self-fulfillment, self-career, self-achievement, all of those things don't matter. They will burn like straw before the judgment of Almighty God. And more importantly, when we take a look at John Paul II's papacy, he reminded us, in Perth, Australia, in 1986, he said, as the family goes, so goes the nation, and so goes the whole world in which we live. Fight to reclaim the centrality and importance of marriage and the family. Teach that to our children. And let's repopulate the nation and the world with people ordered towards building the common good for ourselves and for all. This is how we save society. Thank you for joining us. I'm Marcus Peter.